Good afternoon. So today we are going to see the introduction of fuels. So what is fuel actually? We can see some of the example for the fuels like wood that the coke, charcoal, petrol, diesel, kerosene and LPG. These are some of the example of the fuel. So when we take a name of a fuel, we can see these example. But what is fuel actually? A fuel is nothing but which contains carbon as the main constituent and which on proper burning gives large amount of heat. Now that heat can be used economically for the domestic and industrial purpose. So what is fuel? It is a combustible substance which contain carbon as the main constituent. So where we have seen the example like the wood, charcoal, coke, kerosene, petrol, LPG, in all that fuel we can see carbon is the main constituent. Now the classification of fuel. The fuels have been classified according to their the number one occurrence, and the second is the state of aggregation. Now let's have a look to the occurrence. Now you can also tell us that how occurrence of the fuel takes place. The occurrence of the fuels takes place by one, that is natural or the primary fuels. Now you can see here the natural or the primary fuels. The primary fuels which are obtained or found in nature like wood, peat, coal, petroleum and natural gas. So these things which we obtained from the nature or naturally. So they are called as the primary fuels. Now the second is called as the artificial or secondary fuels. Now what is secondary fuels? Those which are prepared from the primary fuels are called as the secondary fuels. Now what we prepare like from the petroleum we can take out separate out the kerosene, petrol and the other things like the from the coal we can get the charcoal, then we get the fuels from the petroleum we can get the oil gas, also from this natural gas we can also get the producer gas. So these are some of the example of the secondary fuels. Now the second thing is the state of aggregation, means the state of the fuels. So let's have a look. The solid fuel, second you can guess it is a liquid fuel, and third is the gaseous fuel. So these are the three state of aggregation, that is the solid fuel, liquid fuel and the gaseous fuel. Now let's have a look towards the charts, how they are classified. So the chemical fuels is being classified as the primary or the natural fuels, secondary or the derived fuels. Now in primary fuels, you can see the solid, you can see the liquid and the gas. So these are the three forms of the primary or the natural fuels. So example of the solid fuels naturally which comes or which occurs in nature like wood, peat, lignite. So these three are the example for the solid fuels. Now for the liquid fuels, we get the crude oil. For the gaseous fuel, we get the natural gas. So when we get the crude oil, in that only surrounding we get the natural gas. Now the secondary or the derived. Now it is classified in three forms: solid. In that solid, we can take an example of coke, charcoal, coal. The second is called as the liquid fuels. Example is tar, kerosene, diesel, and the petrol. Now the gaseous fuel, coal gas, water gas, biogas, and the oil gas. So this is the chart where we can see the chemical fuels which is being divided in the primary or natural, and the second is the secondary, or it is from the derived from the primary, so it is called as the derived. In both the things we can see the solid, liquid, and the gas, and we have seen the example. Now what are the properties of fuel? So as we know, it should have a good calorific value. So calorific value means what? When the fuel is burned and which contained carbon as the main constituent, and when it burns it gives a energy. So that is called as the calorific value. So it should have a good calorific value. Then it should have a moderate ignition temperature. So it should not have either the low or the high temperature. It should have a moderate temperature at which the fuel should be burned. Then the third thing we can take, the moisture content should be low in the fuel. So if we take an example of wood, when we burn it, so that wood should not be moist, it should be dry. So even if the moisture is there, it should be very less in the wood. The product of combustion should not be harmful. So when we burn the fuel, whatever the byproduct which we obtain, it should not be harmful. Then it should have low NOx combustible matter. It should have low cost. So whenever we take a fuel, the cost should be low. It should be easy to transport. The fuel should be easy to transport from one place to another. Combustion should be controllable. So when we take an controllable combustion means, we take an example of a gas. So when we burn the gas, what happens actually? We can make the flame either low or medium or the high. So that is called as the controllable flame or the controllable combustion. The fuel should have low storage cost. So whenever we store a fuel, the cost should be low. The next is it should burn in air with efficiency. So when we burn a fuel in the air, it should burn with efficiency. It should burn freely. It should have moderate velocity of combustion. So this was all about the introduction of the fuel. So thank you.